and welcome to another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes. I'm your host, Bill Berger, and today's show is being brought to you by the Duke Shop located at 133 West Herrick in downtown Wellington. Today's show, we are featuring the wrestling team here at Wellington High School, and not just the wrestling team at high school level, but throughout middle school, elementary school, and everything. And with us today to talk about the wrestling team is Baron Turner. He's a sophomore here at Wellington High School and a three-sport athlete. He's in football, wrestling of course, and he's also a track star for the Wellington High School team. So welcome, Baron. Good to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
The first part of the show, I want to talk basically about wrestling. For people who don't know anything about wrestling, have never maybe seen a wrestling match, what goes into it, and so on. So if you could, Baron, explain what a typical match is involved, the weight classes, and how it's all put together.
Well, there's about, I think, like 10 weight classes. You start from like 106 to 285, which is heavyweight. We have five wrestlers, excluding myself, that are wrestling. Ethan Ozenbaugh at 215, Alex Sparks at heavyweight, Wade Bowman at 126, and Grant Kale at 138, and Austin at 145.
All those guys, obviously a good shout out, but you said we have 10 weight classes, but we only have like, what, 5 or 6 wrestlers, something like that. So we have to do a lot of forfeiting. So what does that actually do as far as the individual matches go, and how do the individual matches take place?
An individual match is 3 2-minute periods.
Okay.
You start the first period in a neutral position, so that's wrestlers standing up in front of each other.
Is that known as the referee position, or is that something different?
Referee's position is when someone's down on
Oh,
their
okay.
hands and knees,
Okay.
and then the other one covers them.
Okay.
And typically, in the second period, before it starts, the ref will flip like this giant coin that has green or red on it, and then the green wrestler, if he wins the toss, gets the option to defer, top or bottom,
Okay.
or neutral.
Okay.
And then you go from there and you wrestle your periods.
Now, doesn't normally start from in the first period. You usually start from a neutral position.
Yes.
Now, what are you trying to accomplish? Pretty obvious when you're on the bottom or the top, but in a neutral position, what are you trying to attain? I guess is the right word.
Well, certain wrestlers will just fill out what the other wrestler, like what he's moving for, what his moves are, and what he wants to get. And then some people just go straight out the gate and try to pin the other person.
Okay. Do you think that wrestling is an individual sport? Do you think it's a team sport, or shall we say a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both, because you use all of your individual wrestlers to acquire team points for the team. But then again, it's also an individual sport because each individual wrestler has their own set of moves that they like to do and their own like technique styles. So it's a combination of both.
Obviously, team-wise, you're trying to get as many maximum points for the team. But to me, just as an observer, it's so much more individual sport because you're the only one out there on the mat with the other person. I mean, you have your coaches and everybody helping you, and all the team members, but it's just you against the other guy. It would seem to me it would be more weighted, I guess is maybe the right word, weighted toward the individual aspect. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree.
Yeah. Well, very seldom, and I don't know, because I'm only used to having, when we have matches here at Wellington High School, we have at least 4 teams. Now, is that all, or do we ever have any matches where we're just one team against the other?
Yes.
We do.
Sometimes we did.
Now, if we have, say, 4 teams, wrestling a double duel type situation, it's got to be, shall we say, you're going to be wrestling at least 2 matches. I think you would agree.
Yes.
How do you pace yourself, or do you pace yourself, or is it all into the first match, and then, the second match, well, what we're going to get? Is there a pacing situation is my question.
In a way there is, because when you're in your actual match, you pace yourself so that you don't just get super tired in the first period. However, after your first match, you typically would have to go all the way back through the lineup to get back to yourself, so you have time to recover in between your next match with your next opponent.
Okay, brings up a good question in my mind. Okay, we have 3 periods. Do you go all out in that first period? and then to try to pin the guy, or again is it pacing within the match?
That's essentially pacing within pacing.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, people that have gone to basketball games have seen up in the mezzanine of the gymnasium, there's a whole bunch of construction going on. What's the purpose of the construction, and is it actually doing some good?
The construction is they're building a wall to help prevent the draft so that we can keep heat in the mezzanine, because sometimes it does get a little cold and drafty up there.
Oh, okay. Does it help as far as the noise situation is concerned? I have done basketball games where there's so much noise going on up in the mezzanine, it's hard for me to get in a word edgewise when I'm doing the PA announcing. So is there a noise canceling aspect to it also?
Yes, I believe there is, because we can't hear like the basketball coaches when we're practicing. We can't hear them as much as we used to be able to.
How about during a basketball game I'm talking about? Again, is that noise cancellation working, or is there more noise or less noise during a basketball game?
There's a little bit more noise when the crowd is yelling,
Sure.
just because of the echo, and there's only certain ways the sound can pass through the wall. So there's a little bit more sometimes.
Do you have any? And we didn't talk about this, but do you know how that wall cancels it out? Is there any kind of an insulation involved, or is it just literally a wall?
I think just the wall being there stops like the noise coming through.
Mm-hmm. Well, we also know that we have some improvements in our uniforms this year. New uniforms, new gear. Does that help the esprit de corps, or is it just a situation where, hey, we got new uniforms this year?
I think the new uniforms help. A lot of wrestlers didn't like the last uniforms because the part that goes on your leg of the singlet was too long, and so it would just be in the way. Now they're a little bit shorter, and our uniforms are more comfortable to wear. So
we brought up the roster. We only have, 5, 6 wrestlers, something like that?
yes.
How does that impact your feelings going into a match? Now, I didn't look at Max Preps or Lorain County 8 website before I came in. Maybe I should have. How is Wellington doing against all the other teams, especially since, and would you call it a rebuilding year or a retooling year? What would you call it?
I would call it a rebuilding year. We don't have many wrestlers, so we just try with as many wrestlers as we can to do the best we can against the other teams. We don't win a lot of duels because of the lack of wrestlers, but if you want to wrestle, come out.
How brings up another good point. Now, you being a football fan and football player, I know Coach Howells goes around the school, and especially like at lunch and things like that, he tries to recruit players. I know Coach Waters has got another job outside of his being a wrestling coach. How is the recruitment aspect done here at the high school and in middle school and the elementary school?
The elementary school is more so between like different parents hearing about what their kids bring home from school, different flyers saying, hey, join our youth program. Throughout the middle school, it's essentially the same as it would be for high school. Coach Waters does take some time out of his work to come to the school and get to see the students and actually talk about wrestling to the students. That's how I found out about wrestling.
Well, we talked about Coach Waters. He is the coach of the high school team and the middle school. Who are the other coaches that are involved in the day-to-day practice?
Coach Tony Budka, Coach Dan McNeely, Coach Huff, I can't remember his first name.
Okay, that's okay.
And then Coach Joseph Fox.
And how does each coach coach the different wrestlers? Is one coach like assigned to one particular wrestler, or is it overall? How does the typical practice, I guess, take place?
We warm up together as a team,
Okay.
and then junior high will go with the coaches that assist the junior high kids,
Okay.
and then high school will be the high school coaches. However, no coach is assigned to a specific kid.
Okay.
All the coaches offer like different aspects of wrestling because they all wrestled different weight classes before. So they all just go around helping with little technique things that they see that we can improve or show us a different way of hitting the move.
Another question which we didn't talk about, but often when I've gone out to watch wrestling practices, we have guys, much like the basketball team, we have guys or girls who graduated from Wellington High School, but have come back to assist in the basketball practices or the football practices, or in this case, the wrestling practices. Do we have that this year?
Yes, we do. A couple people have actually coming back this year.
Mm-hmm.
Derek and Dulcic
Okay.
and Trayton Bowman.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Well, we'd like to thank Baron for coming in, first of all, to talk about wrestling, what takes place during the matches, the coaching aspect and things like that. And when we come back after this break, we'll talk specifically to Baron and how he is performing so far this year and what takes place within the practices and the actual wrestling matches that he participates in. This is Dialogue with the Dukes.
Want some school spirit? The Duke Shop has got you covered. We have bags, shirts, and even sweatpants, and much more. Come see us at 133 West Hedrick Avenue. So be a Duke and visit the Duke Shop today.
We are back. We hope that if you would like quality Duke gear or accessories, that you do visit the Duke Shop located at 133 West Herrick in downtown Wellington. We've been talking with Baron Turner. He is a three-sport athlete and specifically a wrestler on the high school team. And during the first part, we talked about what actually takes place during the matches, how it's determined, each weight class. We talked about practices and things like that, and the coaches and the other athletes involved on the wrestling team. Now we want to talk specifically to Baron because this is his first year in wrestling. We want to talk about experiences and things like that that he has seen so far being on the wrestling team for the first year. So Baron, as I said, it's your first year. If you could tell me the how, the why, the when, why did you actually get into wrestling? Or was it just simply, hey, I wasn't doing anything during winter quarter, hey, I think I'll try out wrestling?
That is exactly what happened. I wasn't doing anything this winter. Well, I didn't have anything planned except for to lift until track season. And then Coach Waters came to our lunch and he said, hey, you should try wrestling. So went out one day and now here we are.
During the one wrestling match that we've had so far at Wellington, are we only going to have one dual meet this year?
Yes.
Yeah. I noticed that if for no other reason, maybe, I don't know if it was because of your experience on the football team or what, but you seem to have the crowd on your side. You seem to be the experience aspect of it, of them knowing you from football. It seems like they were more on your side. Does that actually help you during the wrestling match?
Me personally, I don't really pay attention to the crowd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hear the screams, but I'm focused on my match trying to vindicate.
That's a good point. Do you feel like you have a favorite part of wrestling since this is your first year? And how is it different from football or track? So I guess the question is, what's your favorite part of wrestling? Why did you get into wrestling?
My favorite part about wrestling would have to be, I don't know, just beating up on people, because essentially that's what it is. I enjoy like the physicality part, actually getting grimy and competing with other people.
Now I've seen you on the football field. You're pretty nasty out there on the football field too. I've seen some of the hits out there that you know with the other players. So does the football actually carry over, or is it a completely different situation?
Football does carry over a little bit. However, I feel like now that I do wrestle, my wrestling will carry over to football.
Mm-hmm.
Football is different because you can't do certain things on the field that you could do in a wrestling match.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because football training is a whole lot different and probably much more of a team sport like we talked about earlier. How do you actually train for the matches themselves?
So we condition a lot so that we don't get gassed in our matches, and we just work on our technique and the moves that we use during the match.
You talk about getting gassed. Do you actually do any training outside of wrestling? Do you run, or do you do anything like that?
Me personally, I have to watch my diet because if I don't, then I'll just put on a bunch of weight.
No, we don't want that.
Yeah.
Because I know from experience from when I was in high school, the wrestlers always were, starving themselves.
Yeah.
I hate to say the word starving because that's not good, other than maybe in the heavyweight division where you can eat all you want. But so you watch your diet. Is there anything else that's involved in the training aspect that's maybe different from football or track?
The conditioning from football and track are similar. Now, when it comes down to wrestling, it's a lot more to it because it's using every muscle in your body at every point in time. Whereas some muscles may not be used versus others.
Well, we talked about the fact that Barron's in his first year of wrestling. Do you feel like you've improved this year? Have there been any improvements this year, or you just went into it and went for it all?
There's been a lot of improvements. I have a lot more technique than I did from when I started, and I know how to pace myself better throughout my actual matches.
When you first started, was it like football where you start in a neutral position and all you want to do is just go after him?
Yes.
That was it?
Yes.
What now? Give me an idea of techniques involved now that you've maybe learned that have improved so far this year.
So wrestling is a lot of pressure, push-pull type movements. So I have learned a lot more of how to counteract with like pulling and pushing movements.
Going into it this year, did you have any goals that you set for yourself? And now that you're into it, have you maybe different goals? Have you come up with something that's different? Or has it been the same thing, for lack of a better term, going into the season versus into the season? Have your goals changed any?
At the beginning of the season, when I chose to do wrestling, I thought this will be good for football. This will teach me like a lot of different things and just help like my aggression when I'm on the field. Other than that, I didn't really have any goals set, but now that like I'm deep into wrestling and I'm actually enjoying it, I want to get better at a lot of like my shots that I take. And other than that, I don't have anything on.
Okay, now we brought up football and the difference there. Now, is there anything from wrestling that you can now apply to football?
Yes. There's a move specifically, the double leg. It helps
Okay.
you with your tackling form
Okay.
a lot. More so that you don't hurt yourself, but also it's an efficient tackle.
Okay. Now, we talked about the fact there are basically three positions, correct? Those three positions are?
Neutral, referee's position, and that will be top or bottom.
Okay. Now, of those three positions, do you have a favorite? Do you like one more than the other?
I would say my favorite position is when I'm on top, only because I can work more to pin the guy versus trying to get out, get neutral, and then pin him, like get him back down to pin him.
Okay, you're on the top. What kind of a move do you use to try to gain? You already have an advantage, I would say,
Yeah.
being on top. Is there another move that you would use or a favorite move that you have that you not only gain the position but improve the position being on the top?
Me personally, sometimes I use the spiral, which is where
Okay, tell me about that.
he would be down like this.
Uh-huh.
You would hit this arm. Well, you'd be on one side.
Right.
You jump to the other side, and you
Okay.
hit this arm out.
Okay.
And with this leg, you're driving his leg out, so you kind of spiral his body and make him flat.
Okay. Okay. You've got him flat. Now, how do you get him on his back to pin him?
Well, you can use multiple different things. There's the cradle. There's the half.
Okay. Tell us all about those.
The cradle is common, but not a lot of people are like good at it, so it takes a lot of work to do. The cradle is where you take somebody's head and arm and you would put it together, and then you would take their leg and bring it up to their head, and then you squeeze and
Ooh.
hold them and you roll them over to your back.
Oh, okay.
And then the half is where you would be under somebody's arm and you would just roll them so they go over to their back.
Okay. Now, I'm a total novice. I don't pretend to know anything
Yeah.
about wrestling. I keep hearing the terms half Nelson and full Nelson. Are those terms that are used in high school wrestling, or is that professional wrestling?
That's actually what the half is. It's a
Oh,
half
okay.
Nelson.
Okay.
That's basically the half of the full Nelson, which is where you would take both of your arms and place them behind their head
Okay.
with both of their arms to where they can't move. Now, that's illegal in high school wrestling.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
So you can't do that, but the half is very effective.
Okay, very good. Well, the last question that I have, we only have one senior on the team, Wade Bowman. In fact, he was during our dual match that we had a week or two ago. We honored him at the beginning of the matches as being a senior on the wrestling team. Because we only have one senior, I'd like to think we're a bit of a disadvantage because of the experience aspect. What does Wade provide to the team, maybe through experience or being able to explain what to expect during matches? How has he actually helped the team, being the only senior on the team?
Wade brings a lot of leadership to the team.
Another
and a
good
lot
point, right.
of positive energy. Me personally, Wade showed me like a lot of different techniques, skills, and he just pushes you to keep going and actually work hard when you're out wrestling.
Okay. Now, what does he do? That's for you. Now, what's he do for the team? Leadership, certainly, but does he provide other things for the team? How does he help coach or the coaches?
When coach is not around, Wade gets a lot of drills started.
Okay.
He shows us like different things that we should be doing versus how we're actually doing them.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, I assume that he's a big help, especially, and can be an adjunct professor, for lack of a better term, to help the coaches and help you get along. Do you feel like because he's a peer of yours, even though a senior, say, do you feel like he helps more from a peer aspect, or does the coach provide more during the practices themselves, and really even during the matches?
During the matches, it would be more of our coaches, but when we're up in the mezzanine wrestling for like practice,
Right.
it's a combination of everybody helping everyone get better.
Yeah.
So it's not just one specific person.
Very good. Well, once again, we'd like to thank Baron Turner for coming in and talking to us about wrestling. And I think the aspect, as we did with the football team earlier this year, we brought in underclassmen, for looking forward to next year and the years coming on, and getting an idea from a starting point, shall we say, and then you've got 2 more years, 2+ more years to go on the wrestling team, as well as football and track, and getting an idea of what it's like to go from an underclassman point of view all the way up to being a senior and so on. So again, thank you, Baron, for coming in. We appreciate it. We'll be back again very soon with another episode of Dialogue.